Spring practice and games across the Pac-12 have finally wrapped up, and the second transfer portal period has come to a close, putting an end to a chaotic spring for many teams across the conference. The center of the madness has been in Boulder, where Colorado has looked more like an airport than a football program. New head coach Deion Sanders has created a volatile culture within the CU locker room, with roster turnover at an unprecedented level. In just the 5 months Coach Prime has been at the helm, a whopping 52 scholarship players have entered the transfer portal, the most in Division I, with most of those transfers coming after the conclusion of spring ball. Just 2 days after the Buffalo's nationally televised spring game, 18 players entered the portal in just 1 day. That number ballooned to 30 within the week, causing confusion across the college football spectrum. It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy, and for a team that went 1-11 last season, there's little for Colorado to lose. But Coach Prime isn't the only new head coach leveraging the portal. Arizona State's Kenny Dillingham has come in with the motto to activate the Valley. Instead, he has activated the portal. The Sun Devils trail just behind the Buffaloes for the most transfers in the FBS, with 27 players transferring from the program. While these two teams may have many players exiting, they have also brought in a lot of fresh talent. For the Buffaloes, Boulder has become the primetime location for talented players in the portal, including former number 1 overall recruit Travis Hunter, who will be at the forefront of new receivers, including USF transfer Jimmy Horn Jr. and Northwestern State veteran Javon Antonio. While CU has a solid core of receivers, Arizona State got the best of the portal litter, headlined by Idaho State transfer Xavier Guillory and Texas transfer Troy O'Meary, who each had stellar springs that left a mark on the coaching staff. Most recently, the Sun Devils landed arguably Colorado's most lethal weapon from last season in Jordan Tyson, who led the Buffaloes in receiving with 470 yards and 4 touchdowns. Despite losing their best offensive weapon, Coach Prime managed to make up for it with some solid additions on the defensive side of the ball, from the stellar SEC and his alma mater, Florida State. Speaking of teams who made some necessary defensive changes, USC at this point is the Pac-12's largest bid for the college football playoff, with several talented players returning to the program, most notably Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams. Offense was never an issue for the Trojans, who led the conference with 41.36 points per game last season. Yet the defense was their Achilles heel, giving up 54 touchdowns and 423.93 total yards of offense per game, which culminated into a crushing 47-24 defeat to Utah in the Pac-12 championship, ending the Trojans' hopes at a CFP berth. Lincoln Riley has now learned and grown and is working to ensure that his team doesn't make the same mistakes in his second year in Troy. Riley has established the point of attack on the front line, with Georgia transfer Bear Alexander, who is on the cusp of being the potential replacement for All-American tackle and top 10 pick Jalen Carter. Putting Alexander next to former 5-star defensive lineman and Texas A&M transfer Anthony Lucas, along with former Arizona starting defensive tackle Keon Bars, and pairing that with a back line of Oklahoma State linebacker Mason Cobb and returner Shane Lee, who is 11th in the Pac-12 in total tackles, the Trojans now have a legitimate chance against some of the Pac-12's lethal rush attacks. On that note of influential run games, USC's crosstown rivals UCLA had the best rushing offense in the conference, averaging 237.2 yards per game. Yet much of those rushing yards were attributed to the Bruins' dual-threat show-stopping quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson. As UCLA enters the post-DTR era, it's time for Chip Kelly's offensive mastermind to start brainstorming new schemes to keep opponents on their toes. While Ethan Garbers did well in the quite odd spring practice structure in Westwood, he doesn't bring the dual threat factor that has made Kelly's offenses thrive. However, 17-year-old true freshman Dante Moore has more of that DTR potential, with a senior year stat line of 2,109 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, while rushing for 489 yards and a touchdown. Nevertheless, DTR wasn't just carrying the ground load all by himself. The Bruins also lost first-team All-Pac-12 and All-American running back Zach Charbonnet, who rushed for 1,300 yards and 14 touchdowns. This leaves another gaping hole in this UCLA offense that needs to be filled. Just as the portal has cured problems for many other programs around the conference, Ball State transfer Carson Steele appears to be the perfect guy to fit in the mold of Chip Kelly's offense, with a 6'1", 215-pound frame and elusiveness that resembles that of Charbonnet. How these players are able to fill the big shoes of the stars that came before them will be a major storyline for UCLA this fall. So while the portal and NFL draft have impacted many teams in the southwest part of the pack, teams in the northwest have retained most of their talent. We'll start in Oregon, where both the Ducks and Beavers are looking to be top 25 contenders, with each ranked inside the top 20 of the 24/7 Sports post-spring rankings. For Oregon, they return a potential Heisman candidate and first-round talent in Bo Nix at the quarterback position, who will be joined in the backfield by Bucky Irving, who is recently projected by Pro Football Focus to be a top 3 running back in the 2024 NFL draft class. That veteran talent on the offense will help to challenge and sharpen the Ducks' defense of Jamal Hill and Jeffrey Bassa, along with many others who will have to face off against Bo Nix and company more than anyone else. Not to be outdone, the Ducks' 2 rivals in Oregon State and Washington have each set themselves in motion to a dark horse college football playoff trajectory. Outside of losing a major player in first-team All-Pac-12 linebacker Omar Speights to the portal, the Beavs have maintained much of their core pieces that made them the best defense in the conference. Offensively, the Beavers bring back a loaded backfield filled by the likes of Damian Martinez, Jamie Griffin, and Deshaun Fenwick, who each made the black and orange running attack so successful. The missing piece of the puzzle last season was really just at the quarterback spot, and it is safe to say that coach Jonathan Smith has gotten that all taken care of, with a healthy QB competition between Clemson transfer DJ Uiagalelei and 4-star dual-threat freshman Aiden Childs. Like Oregon State, Washington has been getting a lot more national buzz following their 11-win season led by the Power 5's leading passer Michael Penix Jr. Penix will once again be equipped with an arsenal of weapons, led by the tandem of 1,000-yard receivers Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze, who aside from Ohio State's Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka, are the most lethal pass-catching duo in the country. Yet those weapons can only thrive with the proper protection up front, which will be the central area of concern for the Huskies after losing veterans like Jackson Kirkland, Corey Luciano, and Henry Bainavalu, who limited opposing defenses to just 5 sacks of Penix on over 600 dropbacks. Addressing these holes up front will be imperative to the Huskies' success in the fall. Over Easton Pullman, Washington State will be interesting to see develop with 2 new coordinators on both sides of the ball. OC Ben Arbuckle will look to help elevate second-year QB Cameron Ward to a new level in a fast-paced modified version of an air raid system, while new DC Jeff Schmedding will look to help build off head coach Jake Dickert's defense that held opponents to just over 20 points per game. Joining the Cougars at the mid-level conference projections would be the Wildcats of Arizona, who while have an explosive offense that can put points on the scoreboard, the lack of size and speed defensively hinders the Wildcats from reaching their full potential. Nevertheless, this is a defense that just needs to get enough stops to keep the offense in the game, because with a veteran quarterback room and stars in the making such as Michael Wiley and Jonah Coleman, the Wildcats will definitely have a legit chance to put some of the Pac-12's larger contenders on upset alert, as they did against UCLA last season. The 2 Bay Area schools are looking to be near the bottom of the conference, with neither Stanford nor Cal showing much roster upgrades this offseason. While they may have some talented returning pieces, they don't have the overall team depth and cohesiveness to contend with their larger conference counterparts. This leaves us with the last but certainly not the least 2-time defending Pac-12 champions Utah Utes. The return of Cam Rising will be sure to keep the Utes in the mix among the top of the conference and CFP conversation. However, winning a championship once is hard. Doing it again the next year is even more challenging, and doing it 3 times is really slim. The last time a team from the Pac did it was Oregon during the Chip Kelly days from 2009 to 2011. Not only will the Utes have to overcome the dynasty hump, but they will also have to deal with the losses on both sides of the ball, with tight end Dalton Kincaid and defensive back Clark Phillips III going to the NFL draft. This is why developing players such as Mickey Sugastraga and Thomas Yasmin, as well as young secondary pieces such as Miles Battle, Sione Vaki, and Blue Stewart will be critical to Utah's ability to maintain their championship pedigree. Overall, the Pac-12 has multiple teams who have a lot of potential and positive signs coming out of spring ball. Now it's just a matter of how that progression continues and these teams gel with each other as the season approaches. There are several legitimate conference title contenders and even playoff hopefuls. Still, each week is going to be a gauntlet, no matter the opponent, which will make for an intriguing season filled with constant innovation and, of course, chaos.